Welcome to the Next Wave of Digital Video. I'm Tony Reale.
And I'm Ben Carlson.
Welcome to the first episode of the NextWaveDV podcast. This is exciting. I'm excited to try this out. We're going to be, Ben and I will be doing just some back and forth conversations about video production, about filmmaking, about marketing, about business, about a lot of different things. And from time to time, we'll definitely have some guests on board. So we're just starting this out. This is going to be pre-recorded, but in the future, let us know in the comments below if you guys would be interested in watching this live and being able to interact with us. So we're going to get started.
Let's get into it.
I want to talk about some of the new things that we're going to be doing at NextWaveDV too, because NextWaveDV, for those of you that have been watching for a while, has been kind of, I say it's like a creative outlet for me. Back when I first started getting into filmmaking, I would learn something new and then I would kind of regurgitate it into a video. I'd spend like a couple weeks learning something. Sure. So like at the beginning it was, video cameras and then depth of field adapters and then 24 frames per second and then lighting techniques and all that kind of stuff. And then I started like distilling it down into all the weeks of stuff that I'd been researching on forums because YouTube was still in its infancy at that time. And I would turn it into a video and I got some people that were interested and enjoyed it. And I even know a couple people that started companies based upon that.
Nice.
There's a company called Jag35 that he had
Shout out.
Started. I don't know if he's around anymore, but he started doing depth of field adapters because he came across my video and he's like, I could make one of those. And fast forward, he had started his own company and there's a lot of products. I still have some of their products in the back, but so that's what NextWaveDV was for me. And then down the road, it became a place for us to show behind the scenes of our productions. Like when I first started, I was the most novice that you could possibly be. And eventually then I turned into, we started Creative Edge Productions, moved into our studio, started getting bigger and bigger clients, got better and better equipment, had a better and better portfolio. And then we started saying, it'd be fun to show everybody our progression. So that's what NextWaveDV was for me at that time. And now today, like there was a period, especially during COVID, where we just didn't have a lot of time to produce the content. We weren't doing a lot of things that I deemed worthy of video content. Yeah. And honestly, YouTube got a lot more saturated with content. So I was more reluctant to add to the noise. Sure. And so I kind of paused doing the content. Yeah. And when we started doing virtual production, and I was like, okay, this is something new. Not a lot of people are doing it. And I wanted to show our process with that. And we're still going to have a lot of virtual production videos coming out. I've already recorded several that we're just, finalizing a few things and we'll be able to come out with those soon. But recently, we were talking, it was like, let's focus. Well, we've got the filmmaking training that we do, but let's talk about the business side of things. Yeah, let's talk about the marketing side of things that we usually do interacting with our customers. I know that there's a lot of people doing that, but I think we have a perspective that we can share that I'm excited to do. So sure. You're going to find a lot more NextWaveDV content. We're going to be, for the first time, somewhat purposeful in our content creation, going to be more regular in it. And we look forward to getting the feedback from you guys. We want to hear what you like and kind of grow it. So there's going to be these podcasts. There's going to be some new show ideas that we're working on. I've been remodeling my office a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of these quicker video casts on just different topics. I use Google Keep on my phone, and every time a topic pops into my head, I've been adding it there so that I can try and work on these videos and come up with ideas. So these
will be like the behind the scenes?
Super behind, like as far behind as you can get. Yeah. And within that too, like our goal, to be perfectly transparent, is to help grow our brand and to get it in front of more faces. So we're going to be leveraging the other platforms out there like TikTok, Instagram, even more on Facebook and LinkedIn. And, it's something that we can share the feedback and interaction that we have, but also, continue to grow our brands and continue to get our faces out in front of people.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important, the creative community, I think, has done a great job utilizing technology. We're both pretty much self-taught. I know there are some great resources of, people that have gone to school for this and are great. I'm grateful for them for sharing their information, but I think this is kind of our way of turning that back around and disseminating all the information that we've taken over the years in videography and photography. And now as we've developed and we've grown this into careers, taking that, and as people have come along with us to learn about how to make the film or how to make films and all the equipment, now learning what do you do with that and where do you step out and how can you monetize? Not that you have to monetize every hobby or passion, but if you do want to step out into business, how can you be most effective in doing that in a time where the digital landscape is changing? And I think it's a really exciting time to be part of the video creative community or even just photography, whatever medium you're in. I think these could be, for graphic designers, web developers. I think there's going to be a lot of content here that will be relevant to broad spectrum of businesses, just people that are looking to grow. And maybe they don't have a business degree. They didn't go to some prestigious school and they really are just learning on the school of hard knocks, like a lot of us have, and making mistakes and saying, all right, let's try it a little bit different. And how, leveraging these types of platforms to hear from someone who might've done it a little bit different. You have a pretty big experience of building several different brands, several different businesses that have all gone on to be pretty darn successful. And we're looking to grow those even further. So it's kind of you're going to come along on the ride with us of learning as we grow and growing with us. And like Tony said, feel free to reach out, any questions, comments. We'd love to discuss it. We'd love to get ideas. That's what this community is all about, is really kind of building and helping each other grow. And so that way we can all be better.
Absolutely. And from a filmmaking perspective, I love the challenge of like commercial production, for example, because you're taking 30 seconds of somebody's attention and trying to tell a complete story in that period. And I like the challenge of that. And what's unique about doing, commercial production is that you have so many limitations. You're not sitting somebody in front of a theater and the lights going down and then you get the title, you're not building up an experience. You have to get their attention in a very short period of time. And
potentially in a time where they have a million other stimuli, whether it's on the subway or hopefully never in their car, but whether it's at school or work, and you have all these things vying for their attention and you have to stand out among all of that.
And, as we see things like TikTok and YouTube Shorts continue to grow, those skill sets that, we've developed in commercial production translate really well into the short form content development. And, a lot of times you'll see podcasts and you'll see, people sitting in front of mics like this and there's a lot of content on there like that. But, and there's great stories and messages that can be told in that. But there's also, I think, a place still for the original creative content and original storytelling within those platforms. Sure. And I think we're going to see a new wave of people coming up with interesting and dynamic stories in that short form content. So we're still when TikTok first came out, it was people, lip syncing and dancing and all that kind of stuff. And now it's turning into snippets of elements of different videos, but I think it's going to transition into even more of narrative content. Sure. I think a very popular trend is where somebody will film themselves and then film themselves from a different perspective as a different person, and that's fun. But what happens when you go to the next level and you actually have, I'll be curious when video cameras fully transition into 9x16 as a, because I built a 9x16 camera rig, my FX6. I was doing a shoot for a client that was wanting to do a TikTok shoot, and I had to rig it up in such a crazy contraption, and it worked well. But I'm curious when we're going to actually have a mode where cameras just straight up can go quickly transition into 9x6
without taping off the screen.
Yeah. And so I think I'll be curious to see when that happens, because I feel it's an inevitability. And I mean, I've seen some monitor manufacturers that you push a button on it and it rotates to 9x16, but that trend of content actually being optimized for that, we obviously see it on our phones, but that, unless you're on your phone, if you're on a computer screen, it's suddenly squished right in. So it'll be curious how that progresses. But working within these platforms and in these mediums, I do enjoy that short form challenge. And when you're working with a business, they're trying to tell a story. They're trying to convey a message. They're trying to sell a product or service or whatever it might be. And so they have a need within that. So you've got all these different limitations you're dealing with. You're dealing with the duration of time. You're dealing with a client that's trying to say, I want to say all these different things in this 30-second spot. And then you as a filmmaker are trying to say, well, the whole, I often say, video is about emotion. Like any other medium, photography, radio, script, copy, website copy, any of those other platforms, there's emotion that can be conveyed in them. But like video it's pure at its purest form is a medium that can convey motion like no other. Because you got music, you have cinematography, you have lighting, you have acting, you have all these things coming together in a unique way. And a lot of times businesses will abandon the biggest potential they have for buy-in from somebody in emotion by just being like, well, we got to say all these different facts. We got to list all these different features and benefits. And then, like us on Facebook and Twitter, they do all this stuff. And then you're left with a very dry, unappealing ad.
Yeah.
And for us, our challenge is to, we always have a joke internally is like, well, we'll give client feedback, but if they push back too much, you'll just say, as long as the check clears, we'll edit it how you want. But that's not what we really want for the clients. We want them to have the most successful, the most, just effective video that could possibly be done for their budget and for their needs. And like I said, there's a challenge in all of that. And I enjoy that perhaps more than I do just regular filmmaking. Like I've done a few short films and I've worked on projects and it's enjoyable, sure. But, like you hear some of those stories of like the first Star Wars film, how much adversity George Lucas had to overcome just to get the film made. And then, all the headaches of everything that they dealt with while it was being made. And in the edit process, how like he showed it to like Steven Spielberg and some of his director friends, and they're like, this isn't very good. I don't understand what the heck's going on. And, and it took him a lot of tweaks to finally get to what we now know is, such a good movie. Yeah. And then you go to the prequels and he didn't have as much adversity. He was worshipped a bit like, like it's George Lucas. It's amazing.
Free reign, go for
whatever
it, George.
He says, do it. If you'll see some of the behind the scenes in some of the movies where he's like, oh man, we're moving ahead on this. So I should probably start writing the film. I'm like, so there's something to be said about that. That the adversity that you go through, the limitations sometimes breeds some of the best artwork and some of the best content. So I enjoy that challenge. And for us, it's how do we stay relevant? How do we continue to help our clients and continue to make content that's interesting to watch? Yeah. And everybody and their brother now have a decent cell phone that can shoot pretty good video.
Yep.
So how do we stay relevant? Well, it isn't just buying a better camera or getting better lighting or getting fancy motion control gear. It's being better at concept development.
Sure. Helping
Helping our customers, be able to come up with a concept they probably wouldn't have been able to figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
And then, of course, implementing that. And so, one of the newer things that we've been focusing on is to maximize these platforms. Because a lot of times we'll give a video to a client and they're like, this is great. And then they bury it on a third page at the bottom of their website. Yeah. They don't know what to do with it. And we've realized like some of these clients need help in how to put it out there, how to help distribute it, how to market it and utilize the different types of social media to their best potential. Like right now the podcast that we're doing is going to be on our YouTube channel. Yep. And then we're going to do an audio version that we'll put on like Spotify and iTunes. And then I'm going to take snippets of this and we're going to put it on TikTok and we're going to put it on, short form like Instagram. And so but we're not dumping the whole podcast on TikTok. Sure, so we're using the medium of the platform to the best of its potential so that people want these short snippets. So like as you and I share like little golden nuggets, those are the best thing for us to share on TikTok. And then hopefully if you're interested in what we say, then you might come back and watch the full podcast. Yeah. And, so a lot of people will just think they can do one thing and then it'll fit all the mediums.
Right.
And that's not the case.
And that's assuming that the system never changes, that the algorithm never changes, and that different, companies prioritize things differently, and what works on one platform doesn't necessarily work the same on the other. So, it's definitely a journey of trying to discover and uncover how to make that work best within, and still without taking up your entire time just trying to fit it into these formats because you still want to create. That's at the end of the day, that's what we are. We're creators. So how do you do that, and how can you manage that effectively and still be successful at growing, whether it's your business or helping a client grow theirs?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got started in video, and like my obsession started off with like I would shoot something with a little video camera. My first camera, I've told the story on our YouTube channel. If you look for the video on how I went from a $27 camera to a $30,000 camera, and that was the progression of going from just this little handy cam that I bought on eBay for $27 at a broken LCD screen, but I just needed something to just start experimenting around it, and I had these ideas for goofy films that I don't even know if they exist anymore, but it was a creative outlet. It was something to do. And I enjoyed it, and I was super proud of it. And now today I'm super embarrassed by them, but I shot them and I would watch it back and I would go, yeah, that doesn't look like film.
Sure.
And again, I didn't have any background in photography or video or anything like that. And I just got really like eating at me. Why does it not look like film?
Yeah.
What makes Hollywood look like Hollywood,
Sure.
and my stuff look like it was shot in a handy cam? And so I went on this deep dive, like a crazy deep dive of shallow depth of field and lenses and lighting and camera motion and 24 frames per second. And because at that time when I was first getting into it, there weren't a lot of video cameras that even shot 24p.
Right.
So when I came up for air, I was like, okay, and so I bought a little bit better of a camera, and I bought a more expensive camera, and I got some better lighting, and I shot some stuff that was a little bit better. And then I kept doing that until then we got to the DSLR revolution that everybody may remember with the 5D Mark II. And that was exciting. And it was a weird period because everybody had the same camera. It was this one block of time where everybody had the same camera.
Yeah.
Everybody that I knew that shot video had a 5D Mark II.
Sure. There
were so many websites, Cinema 5D and Planet 5D, all these channels, which now a lot of them have had to change their name. Like Cinema 5D is now Cine D, because 5D isn't relevant all the 10 plus years later. But it was an interesting like moment in time where we all had similar equipment and we were all testing it out and playing around with it and getting to know it. And you could definitely tell that the film industry finally took note because they were like, oh, everybody's buying all these things. And so you had this interesting lineup of indie film. So brands like Jag35, but also like Kessler Crane, and where they came along and they're like, okay, we can build equipment that can support a DSLR instead of having to support like a giant video camera. And suddenly it was a lot easier to invest in dollies and jibs and sliders and all that kind of stuff because they didn't have to be huge and bulky and expensive and massive. And so then as the video manufacturers finally started coming out with interchangeable lens cameras, we were still sitting over here going, you need to keep it small. So like the FS700 or FS100, even like I remember that being like, it's still tiny. It's still kind of that same size as the of a DSLR, slightly bigger, but again, so we had, granted there are bulkier cameras that have come out since, but we were able to now have a different medium. It wasn't these big ENG cameras, these big bulky video cameras that were just huge and hard to deal with.
Yeah.
And so that progression of technology allowed for, and even like the low light sensitivity of the cameras, we weren't, a lot of times, even when we're doing virtual production, I mentioned, there's a video that got uploaded to Kessler Crane recently where I kind of go over our setup of virtual production and how we use Kessler equipment with it. But one of the things I mentioned in that is how, in order to get the screen to feel like it's your background, it's really there, you need to make sure that you're not overlighting your talent so that the screen is dim.
Yeah.
And obviously we would all like bigger and brighter screens, but you have to look where, like the brighter the screen, you hit a certain threshold and then they go exponentially more expensive.
Yeah.
So within the limitations we have, I'm actually dialing the lighting down to be pretty dim actually. And, I'm bumping the camera up. So my FX6, I love that it has the dual ISO. And like I'll just be shooting typically at 5,000 ISO and that second base level. And I can shoot and let that screen really kind of get vibrant and pop against the talent. And so there are things that you couldn't do. If we were shooting with older video cameras that had much poor sensitivity, it wouldn't work. So there's, as the technology progresses, there are new things that we can do that we couldn't do before, and new possibilities. So I love, that's what technology is to me. This ability to open up new possibilities, not to just to have the nice next thing to play around with. That's fun too, but to actually allow for new storytelling of possibilities. It's one of the reasons that a lot of the gear that I've gotten, motion control and gimbals and jibs and dollies, and all that kind of stuff, it's all about being able to tell a story, because every camera motion, every form of lighting is done. There's a language to it that we've learned over the years, and it's allowed us to tell a story. When you do a slow dolly in, it's a level of intimacy, and when you do a fast dolly in, it might be a realization. When you do a jib rise, there's finality to it. When you do a pull out, it's a loneliness. Like this language is something that's been said so many times over the years that it's ingrained that you might not even realize it, but by doing that. And so if you don't know that language and you're doing these shots and you're saying, it's like you if we went to a different country and I heard a word, and so I'm going to speak it, and like maybe I just insulted a person. I don't know. So, you definitely want to know that language. You want to understand it and be able to use it correctly so that you can, again, convey that emotion without even have to say something. Yeah.
And, I think there's, going back to the analogy of, you can sometimes go to a different country where you don't understand the language and you still communicate. I remember I once had dinner with people from France, from Spain, from Poland, and English was the core language, but no one spoke it extremely well. So we kind of did these broken up versions of our own language, and we pieced it together. But it was one of the best dinner conversations I've ever had, because we got it. And there was so much, it was outside of just the verbal, what was said. It was the emotion that was portrayed behind it, and the gestures, and the, being able to see it on their body language. And so there's so many different ways to convey that emotion. And I think you nailed it, where in movies and film and TV, these are all happening. These languages are being spoken, and we might not be able to identify, oh, they're pushing in, so that's, portraying closeness, but we feel that. And so I think it's interesting on what we get to, as we get to create, how we interpret those languages and how we play with them. I want to go back, if I can. You said something really interesting where you said, the 5D was kind of a turning point where everyone had the same camera, and it was a turning point in technology and how the film industry shifted. I think the same could be said. We're at a point where just about everyone has the same 3 or 4 cameras, whether it's an iPhone or a Samsung or a Google. We're all kind of back at that position where everyone has, and I know the comments could get flooded with which is better, and oh no, these have, for the layperson, it's going to be pretty darn close for what you're going to be doing. And if you wanted to extend it out further, just about any of them could be extended out further, and you could add on further kit. So what do you think the future looks like now that we're back to that kind of a base level where the industry is changing, and we're having these creators coming forward, creating beautiful masterpieces of art with a pocket cell phone, which you would be frowned upon and shunned, years back. And now it's so much more accessible to everyone. Where do you think we're headed?
Well, the thing that's interesting to me is cell phones, because it democratizes the ability for filmmaking and storytelling. It allows the cream to rise to the top. Yeah. And so some of the most entertaining and enjoyable, and people that, maybe wouldn't ever get on a late night talk show as the frontline as a comedian, but they've got funny bits to share, and, they start showing up in your TikTok feed, and they can have, and they can specialize in that one bit. Sure. Like there's, I don't know a lot of these people's names, but there's a guy that like just reacts to people, but he puts himself in the scenario so it feels like he's there. Yeah. And he reacts to somebody else's TikTok, and he doesn't say anything. He just kind of looks around like surprised. And some of these bits that people do that are great, and they've found their niche. Yeah. In fact, there's my brother-in-law. His cousin actually does some of the really well-known, I can't think of the guy's name off the top of my head, but he He does some of the like lag in real life videos, and he's got millions of followers that have come from that. And so, you know, it's interesting where people can kind of just grab their phone and tell that story. That said, I think that we're going to see at some point kind of a resurgence of the need for good lighting, good camera motion, because we're going to be so saturated. It's like YouTube. In the early days of YouTube, you upload a music video, people would watch it. And I came across some interesting bands and some short films and comedy bits that were just hilarious, but they were rough, and you know, they were shot on, you know, your handy cams and stuff like that. Nowadays, like, you jump ahead, like, unless your stuff is shot well, you know, it's not going to necessarily rise to the top as easily. So it's a chance for everybody to learn these techniques and get better at them. But, you know, we say it all the time, content is king. And I would even extend that further to say concept is king. Sure. And like, take that step back and actually focus on the concept you're gonna make. Don't just throw your phone in front of you and just rattle on. Plan these things out, you know, and take that extra time. And I think the people that have done the best in TikTok and these other platforms are getting to know their version of it. Yeah. They you know, instead of trying to do a bunch of different things, they're like, this is the thing that worked for me, and I'm telling these stories, and I get my audience that comes back because they enjoy this thing. Yeah.
To the point where even someone like Elise Myers has created her own, this genre of storytelling with the little graphics that pop up and GIFs that pop up. And it is very iconic. And now that has become a way of storytelling that's accepted on TikTok, just from one creator doing exactly what you just said. I mean, she's not doing anything exceptional with how she's filming it. It's just a straight on usually sitting at a table is how it started, and was able to elevate that. And I think what's really exciting is, you know, as we were talking about the equipment leveling out, you're exactly right. What's going to have to stand out is what content is being created. And I think that's a very exciting time, because as our competition or other creators get better, that's going to force us to think outside the box. And it's, you know, it's just not so much one-upping each other, but realizing what's possible and say, oh, if they did this, what if we tried it this way? And what if we tried this? And no one's done it like this. How about we go that direction? Since all the equipment's the same, you're going to have to stand out. And like you said, the cream is going to rise to the top. And I think that's a very exciting time of storytelling.
Yeah. Well, this was fun.
This was awesome.
It's a great first episode. Or just around a half hour. So I think it's a good time to wrap up. But let us know what you guys think of this in the comments. Like I said, we've got a lot of possible ideas on where we could take this podcast. So leave some feedback on what you guys would like. And again, if you'd like to potentially see this live and be able to interact with us, ask us questions, let us know, and we can get that going. We've got our broadcast booth here, so we could get that all set up and everything. So
absolutely.
All right, man. Well, thanks for joining me on this.
And thank you.
We'll see you guys next time.
Yep.